Welcome to the AI Grapple podcast. This is Kate Vandervoort, founder and CEO of Social Mediology and the AI Success Lab. Today I am here with none other than Michael Stelzner, CEO and founder of Social Media Examiner, the world's largest marketing resource. Michael is a visionary in the digital marketing space, guiding millions of marketers on connecting with their audience, driving traffic and growing sales. He's also the host of the AI Explored podcast, where he unpacks the intersection of artificial intelligence and marketing, and the creator of the AI Business Society, empowering marketers to embrace the future. In this episode, Michael shares how he's leading an AI transformation at Social Media Examiner, the unexpected ways that AI is changing the marketing landscape, and how marketers and businesses can unlock the true potential of AI to improve creativity, personalization, and productivity. We also grapple with the big challenges marketers are facing with AI adoption and how AI might reshape consumer engagement with social media. This episode is one you do not want to miss, so let's dive right in.
The AI grapple, where the future begins.
Hello, Michael, and welcome. It is great to have you here.
I am stoked to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I am so excited about this conversation. Although you and I haven't known each other personally for that long, I feel like I've known you for years. We started our companies in the same year, and the social media community that you started when you started Social Media Examiner was one of the first that I was in and a part of, and I learned so much there as I was starting my business. And it's amazing now to be in your AI community, and I'm an avid listener and have recently been a guest on the AI Explored podcast. So I'm super excited about this conversation because I deeply admire your work and am really interested about our conversation today. So could you start us off with sharing a little bit about your background and how you've arrived to where you are?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for being part of all the different things that we've done. I have 2 degrees in speech communications, got my master's in speech, and then ultimately went on to start a creative agency way back in the day where we were doing website design. We're talking like late 90s, early 2000s, logo design, print material, trade show booths, all the things. Then I got into writing, and I wrote a book called Writing White Papers, and that was my first major shift into the world of writing. And I helped a lot of journalists figure out how to get out of media and into business writing. And then after that, I started Social Media Examiner way back in 2009 as an online magazine. And that really was the biggest thing that I've ever done. We've just celebrated 15 years of running that business. And while we were creating Social Media Examiner initially as a blog, we went on to start a podcast called the Social Media Marketing Podcast that a lot of people are familiar with. 9 months after we started that show back in 2012, we started Social Media Marketing World in 2013, which a lot of people don't even realize Social Media Marketing World is a Social Media Examiner property. And that conference has been going on for a very long time. And most recently, I started into the AI frontier back in July-ish, I think is when I started, or May, June, somewhere in the summer. I started the AI Explored podcast, which you'd mentioned and you've been on the show. And then later on, I believe in October, we started the AI Business Society, which was our membership. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a fascinating ride because the marketing world right now is going through a lot of change. Some of it is obviously fueled by AI. Some of it is just, algorithm changes and everything else, which I know you know, Kate. So, but yeah, that's kind of the quick version of how I got here.
Do you find it mind-blowing to think back to white papers and where we are now with AI? Like when you just look at the changes that have happened in that.
It's a crazy journey. I mean, if I think about this, the fact is that I've been an entrepreneur for coming up on 30 years, which is kind of nuts. Started in 1996. But not surprised that there's been change, right? Because first, when there was white papers, it was about disintermediating traditional media, print publications, where if you wanted to publish a piece of content, you had to go to a trade publication and purchase space inside of it. And then the internet came along and allowed people to publish these things and generate leads with these things called white papers. And then, of course, blogging was big, and now blogging is not big, right? Podcasting is big now, and video is big now. And now, obviously, that's all shifting. So I've been in business long enough. We've both been in business long enough to see that there are new innovations, new technological innovation that changes and presents opportunities for creators and marketers when they lean into it.
Can't wait to dive into some of those topics and grapple with them. And fun fact, I was actually at Social Media Marketing World when COVID started unfolding. And I remember I left Australia, and Australia was panicking already. And I landed in the US, and it just sort of wasn't on the radar at that point. And all the toilet paper was selling out here. And the number of Americans who were like, "You crazy Aussies, you're all going nuts over toilet paper." And, here we are now.
Sure enough, yeah.
5 years on.
March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 2020. And I remember right in the middle of the conference, like on the 2nd, the first person in the United States died of COVID. And then all of a sudden, all these speakers started getting cancellations. Big speakers, were all of a sudden 20, 30 cancellations. And we were like, what's going on, And it was kind of, and some people knew, like we had the Japanese Mitsubishi didn't send a staff over because they kind of knew that something was going on because they were close, to China. But the world has completely changed since then. It's fascinating.
Completely. All right. So one of the things I'm fascinated about that you're doing at the moment is leading this amazing AI transformation at Social Media Examiner. So can you share a little bit about why you decided to do that and some of the steps that you're taking to really integrate AI into your business?
I'll be honest, everything in me didn't want to do it because I had previously done this in the crypto Web3 world right around 2021, 2022, and got kind of burned with it because the marketing community had no interest in the blockchain and all the things that were made possible. And I had lost a lot of money with it. And I told myself, I'm not going to jump in early on the next trend. So, I was waiting for certain things to happen in the world of artificial intelligence. I was waiting for people to put a flag in the ground and say, I want to be known as an AI expert. I started to see people in my community starting to do that. I was tracking very carefully to see kind of where the influence was. And I noticed in the early days it was almost exclusively focused on the news, right? This platform is releasing this thing. And still, that's the predominant news cycle right now. Who is releasing what thing? That's kind of what it's all about today. But I started to experiment with AI myself. I got into ChatGPT within days of when it was released, and I had my aha moment. And I began sharing what I found with key staff inside of Social Media Examiner. And pretty early, we set up an internal committee, and we decided that we were going to explore AI. My director of editorial was on that committee because one of my hypotheses is that this AI stuff could help her because we produce lots of things. We have written shows, we have audio, we have articles, we have videos, we have so much stuff. And I was thinking, I wonder if this can help us produce more content. I wonder if this can help us produce better content. I wonder if this can reduce the operating costs of running a media company, because we used to have a lot of people, that were involved with the creation of media. We still have a fair amount, but it's nowhere as big as it was. And over time, I began to realize, okay, we need to come up with an AI policy. And I wrote, this committee helped me come up with the policy. And in the policy, we had things like, here's what you can and can't use AI for. So, for example, one of the things that we wrote in that policy is you're not allowed to use AI note takers inside of live meetings. And the reason why is because these meetings often involve company confidential stuff and intellectual property stuff. And the last thing we want is an AI tool in there recording and uploading the video to who knows where. And we saw it as a threat to our, our kind of trade secrets. So to this day, we've yet to approve these note takers that pop into a meeting, alongside you. Now, the people inside at my company that have neurodiverse challenges like dyslexia, like myself, or ADHD, found these tools really helpful, but we made it a rule that none of my employees are allowed to participate in these tools. If they're having a meeting with an external person, they have to tell the person they're not allowed to talk about anything related to confidential stuff until they turn those, things off. We came up with a list of authorized tools. We came up with use cases that are acceptable use cases and unacceptable use cases. And then we had to train everybody in the company. So we made this policy. We had a little video on it that everyone in the company had to sign and affirm the policy. And then over time, certain people in the company began to really embrace AI for their roles. And there was really one person other than me that was all in on it, which is Allie, who heads up our AI Business Society. And her and I decided to do a company-wide mandatory training about a month ago, where I led it and Allie brought in some other information. But we basically did a 90-minute training where we showed people how to use the tools, because I believe the key part of getting your staff to use these things is to train them on it. We showed them all sorts of use cases and how to do all the things, like just, setting up personas and how to properly prompt and how to create AI images and just all the stuff. And then eventually I did require all of my staff to use AI to improve their work. So that became a company mandate. And then eventually I also asked every single employee in the company to report to their superior on what they did with AI in the last week and what they're learning from AI. And this is forcing everyone to kind of not just say I'm using AI, but to actually weekly report on how they're actually using AI and what they're learning from AI. And it's kind of like an assignment they have to do every week, and they're being held accountable. And I'm holding my leadership team accountable. So that's kind of the stuff that we did at the staff level. And then eventually we began realizing we can start doing things more publicly. We started the AI Explored podcast as an experiment. The experiment was that we were going to, we wanted at least 1,000 downloads per episode before the 12th episode. By the 4th episode, we had crushed those numbers. We called the experiment a success, and we decided this is no longer an experiment. This is a new show, and we're going to do this. And now we have at least 3,000 people downloading each episode of the podcast in the first 7 days, which is really good for such a new podcast. And we have a YouTube channel set up for the podcast, which is getting hundreds of views, not yet thousands. We eventually launched a report, a study where we surveyed 1,250 marketers, and we released this thing called the 2024 Generative AI Marketing Industry Report. And we looked at how marketers are utilizing these tools, how long they've been utilizing these tools, what they're doing with these tools, what they plan to do in the future with these tools. Then I decided to do to launch the AI Business Society, and the way we launched it was we gave away a bunch of free trainings, and one of them was live, and one of them was 2 of them were pre-recorded, and then we got people into our society, and then we did a public launch. First, it was a private launch to just select people that were on the list. Then we public launched it to everyone, and then I did a webinar where I taught a couple thousand people kind of, here's where I see AI going, and here's the fears that you have, and I helped overcome the fears. I knew what the fears were because I had done this study. So all of this was done. And by the way, none of this was on our radar for 2024. When I put my plans together for 2024, I didn't have any of this on our radar. So we moved pretty fast and furious, pretty much in the second half of 2024 to make all this happen.
Oh, there's so much in there that is really best practice of how you can approach the integration of AI, some of the keys of starting with that policy. And I love that you were just really clear on the parameters that would help people. I think it's one of the things that stops a lot of companies diving in or getting started even, is that they're worried that their staff are going to run rogue, or they're worried that it's going to be a time sink, or there's all the safety fears. But to actually put those parameters in place and then give people the freedom, I guess, to explore within those parameters is fantastic.
Thank you.
So I'm fascinated about a couple of things in what you've just shared.
By the way, there's a couple more things I forgot to mention.
Sure.
We also decided to roll out a AI and marketing track at Social Media Marketing World. And that was something that was not on the radar. So it's a dedicated track. And we also decided to roll out a dedicated ticket, physical ticket to Social Media Marketing World, which is an AI ticket, either as an anchor to get people to buy the more expensive all access ticket or the marketer ticket, but also as just a way for people that just want to come and spend all day learning about AI. So yeah, the integration ran across, it was pretty deep and pretty fast, to be honest with you.
So it's one of the things I'm grappling with in my business that I can see you must be as well. Being branded so heavily in that social media marketing space. You know, my company name's Social Mediology, yours is Social Media Examiner. How are you managing, it's not so much a transition, but I guess some of the integrating of this new AI focus, given social media has been such a big focus up until now?
Well, I started to notice pre-COVID kind of a plateauing effect in the social space. And probably around 2018, 2019, somewhere in that range, I started to notice that there just wasn't as much change and innovation happening across the major social platforms. It was small incremental change. It wasn't dramatic kind of changes that we would see before then, like the rollout of just features that nobody had ever heard of before and functions. And I always told myself that as long as the social platforms continue to innovate, there will be for sure a business plan for Social Media Examiner. But we started to notice that they were not innovating as much. So we made the strategic decision to begin expanding from social marketing to all digital marketing. So slowly we started rolling in other forms of marketing that we knew our audience was interested in, because they're not all just social marketers. Many of them are marketers. They just call themselves marketers, right? So we started rolling in things like email marketing, things like Google Ads, which has nothing to do with social, things like YouTube, right? Which a lot of people today think of as social, but they didn't think of back then as social, because it was mostly a broadcast platform. So we just were very strategic about beginning to cover things that kind of fall outside the umbrella of social marketing, but that we know marketers are interested in. We began looking at things like copywriting, persuasion, psychology, I forget what they call it, but neuroscience, right? All these kind of things that are fascinating to marketers. And we just slowly began expanding to all of these topics, which turned out to be a great move because our audience was extremely interested in it. We began covering strategy now a little bit more than just tactical stuff. So all that was already set in motion. So the idea of throwing AI in there wasn't super challenging. But now where I'm at and where you're at is a real quandary, because today there still is, the majority of marketers are resistant to embracing AI as of today. They're curious about it, but they have to fit it into their job. Does that make sense? Because the job of a marketer is still very complex. You got to deal with organic stuff, maybe paid stuff, maybe email stuff, maybe conversion rate optimization stuff. And the list goes on and on. There's a million things that we have to do as marketers, because marketers are now direct sales people, right? They're essentially handling, in many businesses, all of the revenue for the business. There are no more sales teams at a lot of these companies. So tracking and analytics and all these kind of things are also part of the mix. So marketers don't have a lot of bandwidth right now to learn new things unless they are 100% convinced A, it's not a threat, and B, there's big upside for them. So,
and if they're working in a company that allows them to use AI, right? Because there's a ton of marketers who are in companies that have mandated no use of AI as opposed to the approach that you're taking.
Yeah. So what we're doing is kind of a slow expansion strategy, right? Even though it seems fast. right? It is, we are moving relatively fast, but everything is kind of an experiment at this juncture. We're watching metrics to see kind of what's happening. In my professional opinion, I think a lot more people should be, participating in the various things that are going on. And I know that it's not happening as fast as social media did back in the day. But in the beginning of social media, it wasn't all that different than what it is right now. Like in the early days, it was slow going. A lot of people were like, what the heck is social media? Why do I need it? Right. And
why would I want to hear what people have got to say about my business?
Yeah, we're only 2 years into this AI thing. And a lot of marketers tried it, thought it was horrible, and have given up on it. They have no idea how much it's evolved. Or some of them have some really strong convictions that it is bad because maybe someone they listened to saw it as a threat and said that this is evil, or this is going to take away your jobs and all these kind of things. And they just have this reactive, like, nope, never going there, right? But I saw the exact same thing happen in social media. And I saw the exact same thing happen when the internet came out too. So I know that it's really important for my business to balance the legacy stuff that I've got going on, which is my shows and conferences and all that stuff, with the emerging things. And right now, that's why I'm kind of like injecting them together. So our newsletter covers AI stuff. Our conference covers AI stuff. But the data isn't yet really there yet. And a lot of people like you and me, Kate, who pay very close attention to what happens in this space, could be unfortunately duped by every one of their friends that they see going all in on AI, and they could tell themselves it's too late. But I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely early, and it's going to be another couple of years before every marketer literally can't imagine not using AI, because I just know how long these things take. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, yeah, and for those of us that are in the education space and really breaking this down and making it tangible and accessible for people, that's going to be that learning and education journey, like it was with social media, is years ahead of us. So I think those that are making the shift now to incorporate AI, I think still I'm interested as to whether you have a branding exercise ahead of you with social media in the title of your business. I think there's a lot of us that have been really known in that space who are now going to have to evolve that in some way. And I haven't worked that out in my own business yet.
Well, I will tell you, this is what I tell a lot of people. Have you heard of Comic-Con? I don't know if they have that in Australia.
Yeah.
So Comic-Con is not about comics anymore, right? I mean, like, that's a small fragment of what they're about. But they've been around for like 40, 50 years, and they started in San Diego, which is where my headquarters used to be. Now we're a virtual company. And I don't want people to discount the value of a brand, especially a brand that's extremely well known if you happen to have one like I do. I don't anticipate that brand is going to go away anytime soon. I don't anticipate that social media marketing world is going to change its name, even though it's a lot more than social media marketing, because it's got a really respected brand. And this is where I think a lot of marketers make a mistake, is they say to themselves, because the brand doesn't match exactly what I do, I'm going to rebrand. And then they don't realize what they've lost is that reputation. Like, if I said my company's name was something completely different than it is today, nobody would know what it is. And that's why I don't plan to completely rebrand. Instead, I plan to expand into multiple brands. That's how I'm going to work.
Yeah, and how we're approaching that is focusing our branding efforts on products. So keeping the overall brand, but powered by and focusing on the branding of the products.
But if you're a small business, I'm all for having your product and or your company be very self-explanatory, as you do. Like the AI Business Society is very self-explanatory. And, the AI Grapple, which is the name of the show, is very self-explanatory. So in those cases, it might make sense to rebrand, actually. It just depends.
So just touching back on this transformation that you're leading at Social Media Examiner, I'm interested as to how your team responded to the mandate of having to use AI. Did you face any challenges with that? Have you had any resistance, or has it been all in?
None, because this was only recently, after all these other things that already happened. They see the writing on the wall. They understand that this is something that's unlocked for them. I did not have one person reach out to me with a concern at all. As a matter of fact, if anything, I had people reach out to me saying I'm excited because they didn't know how it could work for them. And one of the big unlocks that my staff is starting to see is using AI as a strategic advisor or a coach. And that's something. And actually, even recently, I created a co-CEO AI, ChatGPT, where I trained it on our core value proposition, our guiding principles, and the mission for the company. And now it's not trained on Mike Stelzner. It's just kind of it's been trained up as like an AI that's designed to be like a strategic advisor / CEO who specializes in these things. And I started using it, and I'm like, I may as well let all of my staff use it. So all of my staff now has access to it. They haven't really, quote unquote, grappled, to use your word, with how it's going to help them. But that is something that I just rolled out literally like on Christmas Eve. So I'm just like a big fan of like experimenting and kind of seeing, where we can take all this.
No, I love that. I think we spoke about on your podcast how we've done that with board members for some of our clients. And there's actually a company in China that has 5 CEOs that rotate through the CEO role, and they've actually put in a 6th role, which is an AI CEO. And so what they find is those CEOs each bring different perspectives. I'm not sure what the frequency is of the rotation, but there's an AI CEO that's now involved in that. So certainly
Crazy.
fascinating times. I actually saw the first job ad yesterday that is only AI agents are able to apply for it. So humans are not allowed to apply. So if you've built an AI agent, you can have your AI agent apply for the role and demonstrate how it's going to solve the challenges that the company's advertising for, which I think is fascinating as well.
Very intriguing. Yeah, for sure.
So, and what I love about everything that you've been talking about is how you are using AI to be more, do more, develop, produce better quality. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of marketers or businesses are missing at the moment is AI, am I just outsourcing what I do to AI, which you get a fairly average response back, but it's when you truly collaborate and have AI as a teammate to do more and be more and increase quality. And I love that that's the approach that you're taking as well. So someone who's like you, deeply embedded in the world of marketing, what do you see are the major changes that AI is going to bring to the marketing industry?
Well, first of all, I'm shocked at how most marketers are only using AI for content creation, and that's it. And it's fascinating. Like I'll be watching the news, like major news networks, like financial news networks and stuff like that. And they always throw out marketing as one of the big things that a lot of people are using AI for. But what they really mean is content marketing. And, when I think of what marketers are doing mostly with AI, it seems to be almost exclusively utilizing it to create content strategies on social platforms or to write written content. If they're really sophisticated, they're utilizing it to create visuals that are that look real, maybe in their ads, or like a virtual equivalent of themselves, which you know how to do better than I do with these lorry things. And if they're really, really sophisticated, they're utilizing it in video because it's still very early days on this. But I feel like that's just the table stakes. And I feel like it's what most marketers are focusing on, which is the content side of things. And as I mentioned earlier, the massive unlock for marketers when they begin to wrap their head around how to use this is to create AI personas, AI avatars, AI advisors, agents, whatever you want, like the CEO example that I'm talking about, and utilizing AI as a sounding board to help people think through things before they actually present them to other people. So, for example, one of the coolest things that I love about ChatGPT is the advanced voice mode. The fact that I can talk things out with it. I'm a verbal processor. So prior to the advanced voice mode, I was literally talking things out with my staff. And I got staff all over the country, and sometimes they're not available when I need to talk things out on the weekends or on holidays. So I have been able to use ChatGPT to help me think through complex things and to look at the pros and cons of it and to ask me questions so it can better inform me. That is such a massive unlock for so many people, because marketers have to deal with vendors, they have to deal with contractors, they have to deal with staff, they have to deal with their bosses. Sometimes they have to deal with people that are not pleasant. So utilizing AI to say, hey, my boss happens to be an Enneagram 8 Wing 7, which I am, and I'm a 5 or a 2. Help me understand how I can communicate in a way that won't anger my boss, or trigger him. Just all these cool kind of unlimited applications where you can do these really cool things that marketers don't think about. Because most marketers are thinking, how can I get more sales? How can I be more persuasive? But they're not thinking about the fundamental parts of their job, which is that they got to work with other humans, right? And they've got to persuade people to do things. And that's where having AI as like a coach or an advisor comes in really handy. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I don't even know if I've answered your question. I might have gone down a rabbit trail there.
Oh, no, it's a great one to go down. And I think you're absolutely right. And it's one of my favorite ways of using AI as well. I do it after school drop off as I'm driving home. Chatty and I chat away, have great conversations. And even from a personal perspective, I have a child who's got a particular bully in her class, and we have conversations with ChatGPT and it's obviously supervised. I'm there with her, but she will say some of the things that the bully is saying to her, and ChatGPT is giving her these great creative responses that if she heard them from me, it's like, Mom, that's so embarrassing. I'd never do that. But suddenly Chatty's got the ability to, present that to her in a way that she feels comfortable and can own. And I think that interpersonal relationship side is such an important part of marketing and being and thriving in your role as a marketer. And to actually take the weight, as you said, of not having to process with your staff all the time, but actually, progress your thoughts before you take them to staff is hugely valuable. Have you used the camera
You're back.
function? Oh, sorry. Have you used the camera function or screen share function much?
Yeah, I messed around with it a little bit. It's really interesting. I was at a barbecue place with a bunch of guys, and I said, check this out. And I showed them the TV that was on, and I said, what's happening here? And they said, it looks like a sporting event. Then I zoomed in on it. Can you tell me more? They said, oh yeah, that looks like a volleyball game. And it looks like it's a college volleyball game going on. They were kind of blown away. Another really cool application that I think a lot of marketers aren't thinking about is actually creating projects or custom GPTs. I'm a huge fan of Claude, and because a lot of what I do is writing, because I am a writer, I trained up a Claude project on. I trained up 2 of them on how to write like me. And what I did was I gave it literally every single page for social media marketing world, and I exported a CSV file with hundreds of testimonials from our customers, and then I gave it a couple of my best performing emails, and then I said, okay, here's how I want you to structure the email. And basically what's really cool is I can now prompt it, like for example, create an end of year email that's going to go out the day before the end of the year, and have it say, if you can't travel to San Diego, we have a special sale going on for our virtual ticket, and have it be themed related to like, new year, new beginnings kind of stuff. And then boom, pops it out. And I have these two models that are trained up, and one is slightly different than the other. And then it's modeled and it knows how to find the quote that perfectly matches it and actually gives me a recommendation on what kind of image I should pull from our almost thousands of images of different people, that we've taken at Social Media Marketing World. And then I can bring that into a draft document and edit it. And sometimes I'll go back to it and say, hey, give me all the customer quotes about this topic. Like, for example, the networking table talks, right? And we'll say, well, here's 5 of them that seem to work the theme of your email, and it's really cool because it's got this database in its virtual head that's so much bigger than what I can do in my head, right? And it's the matching of the quote to the theme of the email. It's absolutely magical. And then when you get really creative with it, this is when magic happens too. For example, you could say something like, one of them was like, it was like Mission Impossible themed, and I asked it to go ahead and this is your case number. It just got really creative. Should you accept your mission, blah, blah, blah. Then I did another one where I said, okay, you're writing to yourself from the future and you had just attended Social Media Marketing World. And it got really creative, and then I got a little bit more creative. But I've gotten responses from people on our newsletter that have like, these are some of the most creative things that we've ever seen, and our little guy Scout has a magnifying glass. So we've been able to use him in the investigative one. And it's just allowed me, because I have a background as a writer. I wrote a book on writing. I'm one of the chief writers inside of Social Media Examiner. It's just allowed me to like crank stuff and increase my creativity at a level that I could just frankly never do before. And I can even paste my emails back in here and I can say like, tell me what's missing. What's wrong with this message, or maybe take another stab at completely recrafting this message. And maybe it's just a drier message that I created, but it will do it based on its training model. And I've just found it to be so much better than what I could ever have done. And the key to the whole thing is to have a custom GPT or a Claude project that's been really refined and trained. That's when the magic sauce happens.
And I think that is a real unlock there, because it talks about what you're talking about is the human in the loop.
Right.
And if you don't already have the creativity, the skills, then you are only getting mediocre results. But when you really pair your knowledge and background and experience and style, and then use AI to be so much more creative, that's where the real unlock happens. One of the other things I'm really excited about, and having for 15 years talked about, the hyper-personalization of content and how you really speak to people in a way where people feel like you're speaking directly to them. What are your thoughts or reflections on how AI can really enhance personalization?
It's definitely a topic. When you say personalization, I think different for every person. Is that what you mean by that? Or do you mean something else?
Well, yes, that's one aspect, but it's also how do you write? And so some of that segmentation of segmenting your audience, but how do you write in a way that people, so using the language of your audience, writing in a way that people feel like you're speaking to me, Kate, not to every other marketer in the world?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, obviously as a copywriter, I can address this, and then anybody can train a model on how to do this. One of the key things is to use the word you a lot in your writing, right? Another one is to like imagine. So imagine you were able to solve this problem. Does that make sense? Like imagine you were able to double your leads or sales in the next calendar year. What would that make possible? Might it allow you to get a raise or to retain clients longer or to become the most valued person inside your company? And again, these things I know because we are constantly surveying our audience and we're trying to understand what are their struggles, what are the challenges they're solving for. And when you understand those challenges and you can speak to those challenges, and right now the biggest challenge is overwhelm, right? There's a lot. It's impossible to keep up with everything that's going on right now in the AI world. And So that's where you can start signaling some of those things. But the only way to know these things is to know the community or tribe or whatever your preferred word is, and to speak to those problems. Another thing that you can do is share personal stories, right? That can also humanize you quite a bit. But these are all techniques that you can train an AI model to do. I had Jeff J. Hunter on my podcast, and he's a copywriter. It's really advanced. And he trained up an AI model on literally everything he's ever written, every story he's ever written. And it now has access to this story data bank. And he can quite literally say, write a post about blank. And it will automatically find the relevant stories. He'll have to tweak it a little bit to make sure it's factually accurate. But it's so much better than what he could do on his own. And I think that's the key to a lot of things. And by the way, that's where people are really excited with projects like Claude and others that are getting much better at human language, persuasive language. But yeah, the key to the whole thing is really to speak to your ideal prospects' problems and in a way that they can relate. Most marketers just speak solutions and they just try to sell.
Yeah, that's right. And when you've got the kind of data that you have on your customers, I mean, when we do things like we run virtual focus groups with our personas and our avatars using AI, and AI is actually pretty good if you give it a good reflection of who your target audience is at coming up with what those pain points are, because it's obviously been trained on decades of social media content and people gushing about their pain points. Yeah. It's actually pretty good at really helping with that hyper-personalization aspect in marketing. So one of the things I'm seeing a lot of in your community, in my community, is people, marketers in particular, feeling really overwhelmed. You were just talking about that, about the pace of AI development. What's your approach, or what do you recommend to people when they say there are just so many platforms, I don't know where to start, I don't know how to even begin to implement this? What do you say to them?
Well, the first thing is ignore the news. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy considering that's what we share inside of our society. But ignore the news, because these big companies, Google, Amazon, OpenAI, Anthropic, some of them are smaller, obviously, than others, fill in the blank, a llama / Meta. They are constantly trying to one-up each other with all these new features and stuff. And I would just say, forget about all that. Instead, what I would say is identify something that you feel like is an opportunity for improvement as the first order of things, but something you know quite a bit about. So maybe you're a writer, or maybe you're, I don't know, a YouTuber, or maybe you're a podcaster, or maybe whatever, but you have this niche expertise, right? And in your case right now, Kate, it's AI. So what I would say is, okay, I would use AI to help you identify opportunities, maybe to explore things that you're missing. And this is where I would just start by feeding it as much information as you can about what you're doing and what you've done, and then have it analyze it and say, what is it that I'm not doing that you think I should be doing? And Andy Crestodina calls this gap analysis, and I've got an interview coming up with him, which is brilliant. Looking for opportunities in what you're already doing, and then start using AI. I would stick with one of the big ones like ChatGPT or Claude, because those are the ones most people are using. ChatGPT. You could start with ChatGPT, and just start asking it really intelligent questions. And the key to having AI work is to give AI a role. And the key words you want to say are, you are a blank. You are a world's expert in email deliverability, or you are a world's expert in marketing strategy, whatever your thing is, okay? And when you tell it you are something, what it does is it narrows its base of knowledge down to that set that's relevant for that audience. And then you just have to give it, give it as much information as you can about your business or your challenge, and then ask it, what else do you need to know to be able to support me? And it's going to ask you some other stuff. Like maybe it'll ask you, what's your key value proposition? Can you give me a description of who your ideal target audience is? Or tell me more about your products and services. Some of these you can just give a link to and it will go read it. Like ChatGPT is very good at that. And then start asking it very specific questions. And the key is to tell it when you don't like its answers. Just tell it, this is wrong. You got it totally wrong. And it'll say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Here's another stab at it. Or here's some output that I've edited. What are you learning from what I've just put in there? And this is where you have to treat it like an intern. I recently heard a Stanford professor, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, Ethan Mollick, said that each time you chat with AI, act like it's one of the smartest people that doesn't remember the last conversation you had with it. I think that's the way you have to think about it from the beginning. You have to act as if its memory is horrible and it has no idea what you're talking about in the beginning. And then eventually you'll learn the more advanced things. But if you don't do these basic things, and Kate, I know you can add on top of this, but if you don't do these basic things, like starting with practical applications for your work, then you're just going to ask it the most silly question and it's going to give you the most generic answer and you're going to abandon it and you're going to think it's stupid. Have you found this to be true with the people you're working with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's one of the biggest frustrations in AI communities on social media at the moment is when people ask a question and people just answer with, have you asked ChatGPT? And I think it's probably one of the shifts that we're going to start seeing with social media and also with search in general. I'm not going to Google to get solutions to my problems anymore. I go to ChatGPT. I was driving with my partner the other day and he couldn't figure out, he'd flicked some button on his Audi and couldn't figure out how to turn it off. And so I turned on ChatGPT with camera mode and I said, see this icon here? What have we hit and how do we turn it off? And instantaneously it told us exactly how to do what we needed, rather than me sitting there and getting out the manual or Googling it or asking in an Audi Facebook group, which is what I historically probably would have done in that situation. So it's certainly changing behaviors. And just in that, Michael, how are you seeing or how are you starting to think about how AI is going to change the future of social media and how we communicate? Because I think, there's a couple of challenges. One is what happens when we get this avalanche of synthetic or fake content. And so no one really knows whether they're talking to a person or whether they're talking to AI or whether something's real or not. But also just in terms of our behavior of how we use these platforms, what are your thoughts about the future of AI and social media?
Well, I think first of all, it's gonna up-level everyone's content because everyone who uses it is going to have, generally speaking, better content. So if you're not using it, you will be probably not as successful as those who are. It's also going to make it a lot easier for mediocre marketers to become very good marketers. And as a result, steal market share from those who do not actually utilize AI created content, because I'm already starting to see AI images dominating my feeds, you know what I mean? And they're actually quite good. And they're much better than the images that people used to have, which is just themselves, selfie shots, random selfie shots. So I do think that the message is really important, and whoever tells the best stories is ultimately going to win. But I do think that AI is going to allow social marketers to get more attention if it's well crafted. If it's not well crafted, well, then it's not going to work. But if it is well crafted, it's absolutely going to work. I personally do not use AI to write any of my content that I publish out on the social platforms because they're all stories that I write myself. But I know for sure my team is using AI to create engaging posts for all the various things that we're working on.
And just as we start to wrap up, because I know we could talk for days on all of this, one of the other big unlocks, I think, for marketers is using AI to analyze results or metrics or performance of their content. How are you approaching that at Social Media Examiner?
Right now, I'm underwhelmed with the abilities of the AI systems to do numerical calculations and stuff like that. So I personally am using AI mostly to analyze open-ended data and to do general survey analysis kind of stuff. But my team is I'm not really sure how we're utilizing it in that remark. I know that you can take a screenshot of a report and you can ask AI to interpret it. But honestly, I'm not managing that, so I don't really have a good answer for that one.
And so when you think about then content creation and your team, and if that's the one of the focuses at the moment, how do you see AI shaping how marketers create content, how they curate content, how they distribute content? And I guess I'm particularly interested in this aspect of creativity and whether you think AI is going to start replacing that. Or your thoughts on that?
I think that the big unlocks for a lot of marketers is that get here is image and video creation. Many marketers are decent writers and they will use AI to do some of the things we've already talked about to improve their writing, give it what they were planning to post and ask it to maybe make it a little bit better. But I think the image side of things is massive. And I know you're very into that. And I think that's a massive unlock for all these tools that are out there that can create really attractive looking AI images. And then the video stuff, we're very early days, as you know. A lot of the video stuff looks horrible, but some of the real good applications are taking longer form videos and finding clips inside of them for short form video. I think this is going to allow a lot of YouTubers and podcasters to all of a sudden have shorts and reels and TikToks where they've never had them before without having to hire an editor. That's kind of the early stuff that I see is for sure popping off right now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've fallen short on in the past is things like the reels and the stories and the shorts. And, I've been using Opus Clip for since it first came out, and even Riverside, which is the platform that we're recording in today, now also does the same thing. It will pick out the viral or the most likely to go viral clips from long form content, which is an absolute game changer. That used to take days to do, and now it does it in minutes.
Very cool. I love that.
One of the things I always like to ask Michael as we start to wrap up is if you were to stand on the hill, and the hill is getting smaller and smaller in terms of our ability to see out into the future, what do you see coming down the line, or what's most exciting for you around marketing and AI in particular?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of buzz in the AI industry right now about AI agents or agentic AI. And we've been experimenting. I didn't mention this, but we do have an AI customer support bot and sales bot. It's kind of one and the same on social media marketing world sales page. So this is kind of exciting. We trained it up on all of our customer support data and all of our various pages related to all the things related to the conference. And it's available 24 hours a day. It's super accurate. We monitor the transcripts, of the chats every day to make sure it's accurate. But this is actually a big upside. It's very simple because it understands natural language processing. It's cut down our customer service inquiries. It's increased our sales. It's a very basic application of a chatbot agent, for lack of better words. But where this is going is audio agents and video agents, which is a little less about marketing, but it could for sure be about marketing. So imagine instead of a chatbot talking with your voice to either a like the equivalent of ChatGPT, sounds like a human, right? Acts like a human, is smart, it can answer all your questions. That is coming. And I'm sure when it does come, it's going to help a lot of marketers be better salespeople because they'll be able to literally deal with customers and close customers right there on the spot. And maybe even eventually arrange special deals if they're about to leave, you know what I mean? And say, look, if you close your deal right now, I can give you an extra $100 off. This is totally coming. In the beginning, it will probably be just voice, but very soon it will actually look exactly like a human. And it will look no different than me or you. And we'll be able to choose the gender, the look, the style, and it won't appear as anything but real. And
HeyGen have already released that. So you could be Michael on social media, on the social media marketing world page, and it's you, Michael.
Feels a little bit not
a bit twitchy, yeah.
but it's coming, right? And it's totally coming. and it's coming very fast. And those marketers that embrace this kind of virtual sales agent, for lack of better words, that can answer especially if you have an expensive or complex sale, maybe to warm up a lead, to pre-qualify a lead. I mean, all this stuff is coming, and it's absolutely exciting.
And when you think about the segmentation and the hyper-personalization potential of that, of the kind of data that you're able to capture through a conversation as opposed to filling out a form.
What if it knows all the pages you were already on, and it knows exactly how long you spent on those pages, and it can say, well, have you seen this page over here that can help you convince your boss to come to social media marketing world? I mean, this is coming very, very quickly, and I'm very excited about it. It'll start in text, and then very soon it'll go audio, and then sometime in the future, maybe late 2025, there will be video. But it's really cool, scary, but the idea that we can instantly help someone move along down the funnel, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, and imagine I come back to your page and your agent says to me, Kate, so how'd you go talking to your boss about whether you can come to social media marketing world?
I know. How cool would that be? Yeah, I mean, incredible. That's totally coming.
Yeah. Well, the future is certainly exciting. I keep saying that 2025 is the year of AI. So it will certainly be interesting in a year's time to look back at what happened this year, because I think this is a real inflection point in so many ways, but particularly for marketers. So I'm so grateful, Michael, for all the time you've spent today and sharing. You've got such amazing depth of wisdom in marketing and now AI, and it's fabulous to have a conversation that really focuses in on that. So where would you like people to go? We'll share all of the links that have been mentioned during the show, but where is it that you'd like people to go to find out more about what you're up to?
Socialmediaexaminer.com is the place where you can find all the shows, all the conference stuff, all the things. And then you can contact me on LinkedIn, on X, or on Facebook. I'm easily approachable on all three of those platforms.
Wonderful. And definitely listen to some of the episodes on the AI Explored podcast. And I'll share the link to our conversation on your podcast as well for those that want to go deeper on some of the things that we talked about as well. So thank you so much, Michael. I've really appreciated your time today.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for tuning in to the AI Grapple. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out with any questions or comments about the show. Until next time, keep grappling with AI and stay curious.
From the big challenges to